Welcome to another episode of Commercial Property Roadshow. You're here with Helen Tarrant, and today I'm going to go and talk about residential to commercial, commercial to residential. Often people ask about if you had a residential premise, can you convert it to commercial? If you had a commercial premise, can you convert it to residential? Now, several times this has happened in our time as an investor. So one of the first times that happened was we bought a property in Pymble, and it was a office space. It was used as an office space, and it was part of a large bit of shopfront. And we actually thought when we looked at it, it would actually get better value if we convert it into studios. Because the market was rising for resi, and it would be better off if we gut it, turn it into studios, and then actually sell it that way. And that would actually give us the biggest bang for our buck, especially when we're looking at a flip. If you're looking for cash flow, then obviously commercial is going to give you more cash flow, whereas residential is going to give you more growth. So let's start off and say what exactly is a resi to commercial. So I've got some examples here for you. Here you'll see that we've got commercial premise, but it actually is in a residential house. So in here we've got the vet, and you can see that it used to be, strange enough, 2 residential properties, and it's got a backyard, but the backyard has been concreted, and you have inside is totally a vet and a veterinary hospital, and it's inside a residential premise. So now it's commercial use, but a residential property. So it's probably zoned commercial, but it's a residential house. So it was a residential house in a commercial zone. Another example of it is this property in Warrnambool, which is a property that has a community center tenant, so they use the rooms for a lot of training, and it is also a residential converted to commercial. So a lot of times the reason why tenants like this type of property is actually it gives them the feel of home, the feel of the space. It gives them the feel that the property is not generic and sterile. It's more welcoming, and that's why you have the way that it's set up. The layout's very open plan, it's very inviting, and so a client who is normally a law firm, a financial planner, definitely vets, dentists, community centers actually prefer it more. You often have specialist centers as well. They might be near a hospital when an area gets rezoned. So you might see a hospital come up and then all the area locally to rezone, including the residential. And then you can turn the residential into commercial and actually end up getting higher rents. And the whole purpose of this is that your tenants are actually willing to pay more because there's such scarcity of this type of property around. And then once they're in and they get the occupation certificate, then they're going to stay there for a long time because they really like the premise and it's hard to find a replacement. So it's quite unique. It does cost a bit for you to do the change. And so this is what this video is about. It's about talking about the change. So if you are changing a residential property into commercial, firstly, it's important to look at zoning. Now, zoning is different in all the kind of different shires, different municipalities, different different suburbs and areas. Now, in New South Wales alone, there's 126. And in fact, New South Wales is actually the hardest place and is more stringent than any other state in terms of getting things approved. So, when you look at R1, R2, R3 kind of zoning, you're looking at low density, medium, and high density. You're going to find that it's actually easier to get things, more approved for you in your medium to higher density than it is in a low density. But the main thing is you've got to seek a financial planner. And a financial planner is actually going to be able to walk you through the ins and outs of it. There's a few different things you need to change. Firstly, one of the things that we look at is definitely your fire compliance, because fire compliance changes when you go from residential to commercial, and also then from commercial to residential as well. Whereas in commercial, when you change things from residential to commercial, there is usually a contribution to the council to be made because you're doing the change. And often it depends on whether you're changing it as it is now, or like as in just for office space, or whether you're doing a medical clinic or anything. If you do a medical clinic, that may change again. Or if you're doing things like if you were, let's say you have a garage and let's say it's attached to a residential. So like this potential property, it's a resi. You can see it's like a resi house, but it's attached to a warehouse. If you were to add mezzanine floors and stuff, there's going to be a contribution as well. So different types of property. involves different types of process and the different costs, and each of the costs is different and individual. Now, often you would have a tenant in mind, and if you don't have a tenant in mind, you might have an idea or who or what the area will attract. So, for example, if it's zone medical and it's rezoned the area, you know you want to attract a specialist or an allied health. So you're going to set out the premise in that kind of layout. If you have a tenant that you think you might have a vet tenant, or you might have a law firm or a financial planner, then it's less stringent how you set it up. But fire compliance is one. Obviously the bathroom needs to be changed, so often you will have the full bathroom and the laundry, so you rip out the laundry, make that a storage room. The bathroom, you rip out the bathtub, the shower. Probably if you can make it disability compliant, so maybe there's a way to be able to build a ramp at the back to get access, which is really important if you want any kind of government type tenant in there. And I've definitely seen that in this property in Maitland. And in this property itself, it's actually a residential house. The back, the tenant itself is actually an NDIS tenant. They've built an extension at the back, and that's where the disability ramp comes into the disability toilet. They've done an extension on, and that is where you can actually add value to the property by changing disability access, but disability toilets, and also building the ramp at the back. So a bit of an extension on your residential as well. And then of course it's the layout. You've got the entranceway, and then you've got your different office spaces coming off from there as well. So depending again what kind of tenant, how you would lay that out. So you might have to rip out some doors, you might have to make it open plan, you might need to add some windows, so different things to make a residential to a commercial. But of course you probably won't need the same water heater, so you need a much smaller water heater. You probably need to add in, you've got a full kitchen, you probably want to rip that out, make a kitchenette, and then create that into another the lounge area into more of a office space. You will definitely now need air conditioning heads all around, or false ceiling and ducted, so depending what kind of tenant you want to attract. And of course floor coverings, you probably, if it's floorboards, that may be okay, but in most of the time you probably would end up putting carpet all the way throughout as well. So that is really when you go residential to a commercial, all the things you need to do. Now what happens on the other side? So you're going from a commercial property now into a residential. So one of the reasons is you could have a vacancy, and you could think, okay, it's really, really great to have this commercial premise, and we're going to change it into a residential. And that may be because if you go up one level, you can see the views, or potentially the office space above, or you could get a loft and loft area, and loft area can instead of being a storage area, you can turn that into a beautiful loft apartment. So now with residential property, it's all about the being beautiful and aesthetically pleasing, so it needs to be really, really nice, and access is important. So again, we have done that to a property recently, also in Maitland. So this is different. This is in the center of Maitland, and it was an office space or a bit of a dump upstairs, so it's not really been used as anything, but they've turned it into a beautiful 2-bedroom apartment upstairs. So obviously could have been office space. When they first came in, it was just purely all commercial, with downstairs being the shoe shop, upstairs being just a storage room for the shoe shop, and now they've turned it into a beautiful residential property upstairs, a 2-bedroom that will rent out for over $400, probably close to $450 a week, and downstairs separately to a commercial tenant. Two separate entranceways, so there was a stairway from the back going upwards. They've turned it around, so it now needs near the entrance, and it goes up. And you've got the 2-bedroom upstairs. Downstairs, you've got the commercial premise with access to the back where it didn't. So that is also a really good example of going from commercial to residential. And again, commercial to residential is about making the property beautiful, making it look really nice, access way, but also parking as well. Parking is more important to a residential tenant than it is a commercial tenant. You are also likely to get approved for a residential tenancy conversion if you have more parking. Commercial, you can always say they don't need to be there all the time. Staff can park in council car parks and park in basically they can rent out someone else's car space. They can walk to work, bus to work. They can park 2 streets away. They can park, inside, the shopping center. It doesn't have to be, if you have high street shops that are right in the middle of, the shopping strip shop. You don't have to have a shopping. You don't have to actually have as such, the parking for each of your customers, but not customers, your actual staff member. So if you have 4 staff members, you don't need 4 spaces. And of course, if you have lots of clients that's visiting you, you don't have to have all of that. So you don't have to have 10 car spaces just because you have a shop front. But whereas if you have residential, a 2-bedroom place, you really do need to have at least 1 car space, or be able to give them 1 car space. So that is something that you got to think about. The other thing is also, when you do it, you need to obviously change from a kitchenette to a full kitchen. You obviously need different compliances in the fire compliance side of it. So there's more hardwired in fire. So basically your fire compliance, to make sure you've got smoke alarms, you've got the right exits, you've got all of that. You've got the right fire check walls, all of those things that need to be in there to make sure when you do the conversion. Of course, you need also the occupancy certificate. You need to get it approved, and of course working with the town planner is paramount as well. So these are the things when you are changing, and the reason you would do that is because, not for the rent, because you are not going to get the same rent as you would do a residential going to a commercial, because you are now going from a commercial to a residential where your tenant is not going to pay a whole lot of rent, but what you are going to get is a rise in value. So you're going to get the rise in value where the property is now worth more because it's got the residential, and you can obviously strata it and sell off the residential with the commercial separately, or rent it separately. So that gives you an additional uplift, and that's why you'll consider it. So whether it's commercial or residential, whether doing one conversion to another, there's a lot of work in the background, and you really need to have someone who knows exactly what to do, who have done it, and our team absolutely have, and we're coaching our students at the moment on doing it. So if this is a strategy you want, or in fact you're just looking for a strategy commercial property and you want someone to handhold you through this and work with you to build a portfolio, then reach out to me, helentarrant.com, or email me at helen@commercialpropertycashflow.com.au. Click the link below, book in a strategy call, or simply get in contact. Join our boot camp that's upcoming, and I look forward to helping you in your commercial property journey. Bye for now.